Monica, good morning to you.
Good morning, Gerry. How are you?
Good. It's nice to have you on board. Going back to this issue of whether or not parcels can be sent off, the Army were planning January the 8th cut-off date for people to send parcels off to the men and women of the Irish Defence Forces in Liberia, and suddenly that was cancelled, and there's quite a few of them very annoyed and very upset, and were on to us this morning. You've some experience of sending parcels abroad.
I have indeed, Gerry, yes. My husband's actually overseas at the moment, but I have actually previously sent him when he's been out to Lebanon.
Yeah, he was one of the Lebanon boys, was he?
He was indeed, yeah. I sent out parcels on a regular basis every week, but I had done them indiscreetly, I suppose, in a way. There used to be the aerograms for a penny, and what I used to do was get 5 penny stamps and stick them on a parcel and put them in the post box of the GPO.
And they got to the Lebanon?
Every single time. Never failed.
And where was he? In Shamrock or somewhere like that, was it?
He was up in Camp Shamrock as well. Yeah, he's been out there a few times, so he's been up in the hills as well. But there was never ever a problem. He got them every single time.
Well, yeah, there's a whole selection of these smaller bases. I don't know how the guys don't go out of their minds, because sometimes they spend 5 to 6, 7, 8 nights there, awake most of the time, sometimes in the middle of these small battles between the Hezbollah and the Israeli army. It was a very, very difficult situation. I visited one or two of these outposts, you know.
It was actually prior to that even. He was out there in 85, I think it was the first talk, when things was really tough. But and
you'd send out aerograms and you'd post them in the GPO, not using a special post box or even the army system or anything like that.
Never used the army system. There was a box outside the GPO that was for letters, but would take a bigger letter. So I always made a parcel up of potato crisps, soups, packets of soups, the whole lot, fig rolls, the whole lot, and they'd be all sent out.
Fig rolls, potato crisps, and soup.
And Emerald sweets and bonbons.
In an envelope? In
a brown envelope and sealed with sellotape. Every single time.
And each and every one of them got there?
Every single one of them.
That's incredible, isn't it?
Even the newspapers. I used to send the newspapers with one.
And were the potatoes a bit mashed up when they got there?
Oh, there was a method in my madness in the potato, because what I used to do was I used to open it tiny, pierce a hole in the side of the package of crisps, seal it with let the air out, seal it with a bit of sellotape, and off they went in a bag.
The genius of it.
I can tell you.
Military intelligence must have been monitoring this.
Indeed, I know. But in fairness, he got the parcel every single time.
And I bet he was delighted too as well.
Oh, he was indeed, without a shadow of a doubt. He thoroughly enjoyed it.
And
so
of course, then you had the images of your husband sitting on a sandbag, you know, on a patrol or something like that, munching away on the potato that you sent out, and maybe later on in the evening when the sun went down and it got a little cold, having, you know, an Aran cup of soup or something like that.
That's it, yeah. I have them all. But he thoroughly enjoyed it and received every single one of them, and I never had a problem.
How many times did he go out?
This is his 8th trip.
Holy Moses. And where is he now?
He's out in Kosovo.
In Kosovo, as part of the monitoring force there?
He is indeed, yeah. But he has got every single parcel I sent out to Lebanon and never had a problem, and just done it discreetly, and they went off, no problem.
Monica, of course, these are for quite long and extended stays. This isn't like a travelling salesman who goes away for a few days or something.
No, it's not, indeed.
And you must find it very hard to keep a relationship going under those circumstances. How do you manage that?
Well, I suppose loads of practice now after 8 trips.
Yeah.
But we've always got good communication, so, I mean, we never had a problem. But letter writing was a big thing then. Do you know what I mean? Constant letters. Now, sometimes you can get the email out or the text message, but definitely, communication was never really a problem.
So you reckon reasonably good communication keeps the fires burning? Yeah.
That's it. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, Gerry.
And does it make the heart grow fonder?
Of course it does, Gerry, without a shadow of a doubt.
Because I think an awful lot of fellas would be terrified to come home and to be sorry, have you met Brian?
No, unfortunately not, no. One man is enough for anybody. Who'd want to? One is more than enough.
One is more than enough. One. Many would say one is one too many. All right, Monica, that's good to know. And I have to say, you're a woman of ingenious initiative. And the army should be employing you, as a matter of fact, to come up with the plans. Good morning to you.
Gerry, thanks very much.
There you go. Her husband's been out on 8. He's currently in Kosovo at the moment. He's on 8 trips. Amazing. These are long, extended periods of time to be away from your family. But her parcels would contain 5 to 6 bags of potato crisps. These weren't really parcels. They were actually large envelopes. She'd open the Tato crisps, take all the air out, and then reseal it so they wouldn't go off with a bit of sellotape. And she also sent out, soup and newspapers and all sorts of stuff. And she did it for 5 1p aerogram stamps. Didn't send them by any special technique, just popped them into the post box outside the GPO. I have to say, there may be hope yet for those other women. Now, the popularity of eBay never ceases to astound me. For the uninitiated, and there may be one or two out there listening this morning, eBay is the world's virtual marketplace where millions of items are traded online every day. They're auctioned effectively, but traded in reality. The range of items available on it is mind-blowing. From jewellery to marble, kitchen countertops, you name it, it's there. And last week, if you'd been quick enough, you could have obtained a luxurious 5-star holiday for a fraction of its original cost to Jamaica for Valentine's Week. With one condition. The partner, the Valentine, the beau, the object of your desire and affection is already described, designed and there. In fact, he owns the holiday. And his name is Adam Crute. And he's on the line. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning.
How are you? Welcome. Good to have you on board.
Thank you very much.
And a Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well.
Now, Adam, this is a fantastic holiday, going to a very beautiful destination with tremendous potential. What happened? How did you end up? I presume you didn't walk into a travel agency and say, can I have a Valentine's holiday, a romantic Valentine's holiday to Jamaica for two, but I'm actually just purchasing it by myself.
No, I wish it was that easy. No, I did book it with my partner previously, but things didn't work out. So I got left with half a holiday.
She gave you the bullet?
Yeah, she dumped me.
My God, at this time of the year?
Well, it was about beginning of October-ish. The 40th birthday blues bit.
40th birthday blues and got rid of you?
Yeah, so I wanted a new start.
And tell me, why did she get rid of you?
Well, that's a question that only the women can answer, isn't it? I don't know.
Well, I mean, were you caught in another sack, or what happened?
Oh, no, I wish it was that exciting.
Nothing like that. Just bored with you. Just woke up one day and said, you're out here, sunshine.
Exactly. Out of here, I want a new one.
I want a new one. A younger one, in fact.
A newer model, yeah. A newer model.
And tell me this, would you say that this has been the tradition throughout your romantic life, that you haven't had much luck with the ladies?
I would hope not. No, I've not done too bad so far.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. So there's hope yet. As we say in the world of Catholicism, hope springs eternal.
Exactly.
Now, you've got this wonderful holiday. Tell us a little bit about it, first of all.
Tell you about it. Well, it's similar to a sandals type holiday,
Yes.
but it's if you believe the TripAdvisor reports, it's supposed to be a bit nicer than the sandals resorts.
Which would make it an incredible place.
From what I've read, it looks pretty bloody good.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave it.
No.
It's all inclusive. I mean, it's totally all inclusive. Diving's included, water sports, food, drink.
5-star accommodation.
Yeah, 5-star accommodation.
Beautiful pools,
suite.
lovely bars, magnificent restaurants, poolside service. You're waited on hand and foot.
That's it. Everything is there. It's all inclusive.
Absolutely. So why would you be there by yourself?
Well, that's a bummer a bit, but you can't actually go by yourself. You're not allowed to go by yourself.
Oh, you're not allowed to go by yourself?
Couples only.
Couples only?
Yeah. So I don't think they want too many gooseberries hanging around.
And what about bringing a male pal along with you?
Not allowed to do that either. It's heterosexual couples only.
Oh, I see.
So they're very picky.
Not keen on backdoor love, eh?
Well, that's what I read into it.
Okay, that would probably be illegal in the UK or in Ireland, I think, to make...
It probably would be. I'm not even convinced it's not illegal over there, but
there's
certain ways of marketing these things that make it clear what we want.
So, here we've got the no possibility, I would imagine, of getting your money back.
No, none at all.
Hard to walk into the travel agents and go, she got rid of me, she doesn't like me anymore, she's looking for a new man, and I'd like my money back. Thanks very much indeed. No.
Yeah. You can't even claim on the travel insurance for getting dumped. It's an exclusion.
Yeah, I presume it's an act of God, isn't it? No, actually, God is a good guy. He wouldn't do that.
I've blamed him for a few things in the past, but I don't think I can blame him for that one.
No, God plays cricket. He wouldn't do that. He wouldn't do that.
Right,
that's the devil. Satan did that.
Do.
Satan did that. Or else that fella that she met down at Tesco. I'm not sure. Now, so what you need to do is you need to get a gal, don't you?
That would be nice.
So off to eBay you go.
That's right, yes. It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Well, I don't doubt it was a good idea. Now, they normally trade in services and items and physical things, concert tickets even. I don't think I've ever heard them trade, how should we put this delicately, but human relationships are escorting or anything of that nature. But nonetheless, you did manage to get your ad up on eBay.
Yes, and it was remarkably successful.
Yeah, so I believe. Tell us.
Well, last time I looked, before eBay actually pulled it off their site, it had over 38,000 hits.
Good Lord.
And
now, that's huge.
That is absolutely enormous. I mean, typically when you're looking at something on eBay, it might have a couple of hundred hits.
Yeah, compared to the 8 hits I got on my Nintendo request, that was huge.
Yeah, so it was absolutely mind-boggling. I got over 2,000 emails from various people.
What would they like?
A mixture. I mean, it's like pack your bags. I'm coming with you. You're pulled. To the occasional one, you're out of your tiny little skull. What the hell are you playing at? Or you sad kid.
Now, of course, were they going to have to pay, or were you giving it away for free?
Oh well, no. It was an auction, so it was a case of okay, pay what you think it's worth.
Yeah. What sort of money were they offering?
The highest bid I got before eBay pulled it was £1,300.
Which is not bad, sure it's not.
That's more than half of the cost of a holiday.
Yeah, it's very good indeed. Now, why was the ad pulled?
eBay pulled it off. Initially, they decided it was against their rules because they described it as solicitation.
Solicitation, sort of prostitution
That's
type
the
of
posh
thing.
word for prostitution.
Yeah. Which it's not.
No, well, I reread the article and it didn't even imply that. It was, I have a spare holiday ticket, do you fancy coming with me?
Yeah. Now, tell me, did you make it clear in the eBay ad to any potential ladies who might want to accompany you on this Valentine's tour to Jamaica, what would be required of them?
No, because nothing would be required of them apart from good company.
Just good company?
Yeah.
No
benefits in
touching
kind.
of bottoms or anything of that nature?
No, none of that was implied.
None of that implied at all. Where do they sleep?
Well, there's a king-size bed and there's a hammock on the balcony. Yeah. I'll toss them for it.
And you toss them for that? But certainly they wouldn't be compelled to share a duvet with you.
No, definitely not.
Unless, of course, they decided that's what they wanted to do.
That's depends on whether we both wanted to, I suppose.
Yes, you would presume it would be a woman of consenting age and compos mentis and not somebody who'd been taken from a sheltered accommodation or something like that.
Yeah, you'd hope so.
Yeah. And now, did any of them indicate in their replies that they might be willing not only to throw in some money but also their bodies?
Yes, one or two emails were fairly explicit.
Oh, really? Can you give us some kind of vague idea of what they were offering?
Oh, it was explicit in a subtle sort of way. So, like, if you fancy a cuddle in the middle of the night, I certainly wouldn't turn you down. That sort of thing.
Isn't that nice? A bit of spooning.
Yes, that's the idea.
And who knows where that might lead to?
The mind boggles.
You must have got pretty excited and happy about that and upbeat, after the bad experience you've been through.
I've got to say, it's very good for your ego.
Yeah, absolutely.
Suddenly you've got sort of several thousand women sort of baying to go on holiday with you. You think, whoa, I don't know what to do with all this.
Sounds good to me. I might just go on eBay now myself. That sounds fantastic. Now, of course, are they genuine, though? How can you tell?
You never can.
Yeah.
It's definitely a guess.
And are they psychotic, maybe, some of them?
I'm sure some of them probably were.
But nonetheless, there does seem to be the possibility that there are genuine women in there offering, companionship and possibly even more. Well, I wish you the very best of luck. I hope whoever you decide on enjoys the holiday and that the two of you get on well together and that there's no horror stories out of the thing.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yes, we don't want any of that. And that you do, in fact, find somebody who appreciates you and is pleasant company at the very least.
Thank you very much.
I genuinely mean that. Okay.
Thank you, Gerry.
Adam, good morning to you and a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
Welcome back. I see. Lorraine.
How are you?
Good morning. Yeah, we thought it was another person for a moment there, but in fact it turns out to be Lorraine. Now, you talked to us. No, this isn't the woman. This is very confusing. This is, in fact, the most confusing moment I've had all day. Because, you see, Monica came up on the screen. We did talk to somebody before the Christmas, right, who was blind, and she rang us and she told us about the fact that she was getting mightily pissed off with the way that people were treating her and giving her absolutely and utterly no sort of help when she was getting on and off the DART or trains, and that people wouldn't be bothered giving up a seat, and that occasionally people even went out of their way to misdirect her. Not only misdirect her, but on occasions at platform sides it seemed, and it almost felt as if people were willing to let her actually fall onto the platform. Now, she went out one particular day and she did a little bit of a Ryan Show research for us and became a reporter on the programme for just 24 hours. And really, to be perfectly honest, despite the fact that she'd spoken to us on the programme, despite the fact that people were without doubt aware that, you know, it was likely, if you were taking the DART in Dublin or one of the trains, that you were going to come up against a blind person, and in all likelihood that blind person might be reported for the Gerry Ryan Show, people were continually unpleasant to her. And we were comparing her experience with what you'd get on, for instance, the Paris Metro, where not only are seats set aside on the train for people with visual impairment or other disabilities, and indeed including pregnant women, but if you don't give up the seat, you will be fined and you will actually be arrested. Now, your experience, I don't think it's been much better than hers.
Yeah, recently, well, I get the train most days up from Mullingar up to Dublin because I work in Dublin. And especially coming up to Christmas and holiday seasons and all that, there's a lot of people on the train, especially a lot of old people standing. And because I suppose people have been on their Christmas holidays and summer holidays are commuting up and down going to Dublin to shop. You see
well, of course, Éanra there carried more people last year than in the entire history of the rail network.
Yeah, it's packed. I mean, at Christmas time, it's kind of like the Lewis at rush hour. It's really, really packed. So people get on and, you know, they get their seat and they sit down. And there's a lot of older people who have to stand. Now, that's fine if you're on the Lewis for 10 minutes, but the train from Mullingar to Dublin takes 75 minutes or more. It's
a long time to stand, isn't it?
It's a long time to stand when you're healthy and in your prime, but when you're older, you know, in inferior, or not inferior, what's the word I'm looking for? Infirm.
Infirm.
Anyway, it's a struggle. People regularly faint, and you know, it's a problem. Like, it's kind of like Indian.
People regularly faint, do they?
Yeah. You'd see, like yesterday a girl had to get a seat at the last minute because she was about to hit the ground. I myself have fainted. I was 4 months pregnant. And so
you were
I didn't
4
look
months
pregnant,
and nobody would get up and give you a seat.
But at 4 months you don't look pregnant, you see. So I know in the underground they brought in these badges that have, like, say, baby on board for people who don't look pregnant.
Yeah.
So that you can get a seat. But anyway,
But I mean, when I was a kid, you were taught not only to get up and give your seat to older people or to pregnant women or to somebody who was obviously infirm, you know, somebody on crutches but you were also told to get up and give your seat to a woman.
But that never happens. I mean, the only people who seem to get up and give their seats away are women. Say people who, maybe like myself, have been pregnant and understand.
So what's happened to chivalry? What's happened to decency?
It's dead.
What's happened to the gentleman?
Dead. Oh, no. The gentleman now carries a paper or goes on his laptop and doesn't see anything.
And doesn't see anything?
No.
And I gather including people actually being beaten up, spat at, taunted or humiliated.
Absolutely nothing, yeah. So anyway, this woman, there was this old woman, and she was, I'm being generous now when I say 70 because I don't want to insult her, but I would say possibly closer to 80, even older. And she's standing, and there's this woman I can see in the next carriage, and she has a 3-year-old toddler sitting beside her in a seat of its own.
And she's a younger woman?
She's maybe 35-ish.
Yeah, in the full of her health? In
the full of her health. Sitting down with the child beside her. Child's leaning over her, not even taking up the seat. So I went to her and I said, is there anyone sitting here? And she said, yes, she is. So I said, you're not serious, are you? Like, the train is really, really packed. And she said, I'm very serious. And she looked out the window. And I said, but there's a woman standing there and she's at least 70. And she just grunted and she continued to look out the window. Absolutely no regard for this woman. Like, this woman really, really needed a seat. So I went to the woman. At this stage, I was a bit enraged. I should have handled it different. I probably should have said, well, you know, there's a woman there and who needs your seat and all, but sure, that was gone out the window. So I went to the woman. I said, there's a woman down there who has this child taking up a seat. If I were you, I'd ask for it. So she went down and the woman gave in and she gave her the seat.
And did she give in graciously?
No, not at all. Pulled the bags off, pulled the child off and gave the seat, and then gave me absolutely filthy looks when I got off the train. So,
what a dreadful, appalling woman.
this is the norm. This is what normally happens. This isn't unusual. You'll see whole families of people with teenage children sitting down and telling them, sit down quick, there's more people coming onto the train.
Sit down quick, there's people on wheelchairs, and there's one fella with no legs, and look, here's 3 pregnant women and 5 90-year-old widows. Sit down quickly and get the seats.
Yeah,
and whatever you do, don't stand up, don't give them anything, close your eyes, look out the windows, play with your Nintendo, anything but give them the seats.
Because it's your right, and that's where I think it all comes down to.
No, it's not that. You know what's not? You know what it is? Just doesn't give a shit, basically. That's what it is. Doesn't give a shit.
I don't think so. I think
no, well, I'm afraid I absolutely know so. I beg to differ, as my mother would have said. I beg to differ. They don't give a damn. They don't care. That's the real problem.
And
isn't that awful?
But it's all. But the way I see it as well is that, like, you know, like teenagers and kids and all now are like, you know, if you're in trouble in school, it's not you that gets into trouble. It's the teacher for putting you in trouble in the first place. And it seems that there's like so much about, you know, stand up for your rights. You have a right, as every human being, to have your seat and all that. Somewhere along the line, just basic decency has died. You know, it's not like give that person your seat because they're infirm. It's keep your seat because you've paid for it. You know, and this seems to be what's been instilled in the kids.
God, terrible texts just come in.
Yeah.
I was standing on the Dart and old woman taking up seat. So I saw young fella tip cup of hot coffee over her, which made her jump up, and he then took seat.
Oh my God.
That's appalling, isn't it?
Appalling, absolutely. But as well, like the thing is that like all these older people, like they're so gentle, and you know, like I know from say my.
I know they're not all gentle. I mean, don't forget. No. You know the old people at the bus stop. Get out of the way! Let me clear! I put you out in front of the car. Don't forget those people.
But you'd never see.
Or the fella in the wheelchair going through the revolving door. I'm in a wheelchair! Watch out! Here I come! Everybody out of the way! I mean, they're not all gentle, but
no,
you know.
You'd very, very rarely see an old person asking for a seat when they need one. Very rarely.
No.
Because they've been.
And in fact, I believe that they're thinking of bringing in signs. Old people, those infirm, in wheelchairs, are indeed pregnant, are in need of assistance. If you dare ask for any kind of help from a passenger on this service, you will be beaten to death.
Well, what the guy in Iarnród Éireann said to me was, I was telling him about this, and he said, well, you know, we're not allowed to get involved. That's what he said.
Well, that's pathetic, because in every other country there's actually legislation which not only advises but demands that you give your seat up to these people. Text comes in: if the woman is paying for her child and the child is entitled to the seat, Iarnród Éireann shouldn't have people standing anyway on the trains.
Well, that's it. That is the whole opinion on the train. It's not my fault. It's Iarnród Éireann's. But that woman loses.
Look, there was a system the Nazis used, was very effective. They should have 2 separate lines. One line for the old, the infirm, pregnant women and children. They go to the left, and they should have a big sign telling them that they should expect nothing but the worst. And then to the right, whole-bodied, young, and indeed fee-paying, going to the right, and they're guaranteed of their seats. And that way nobody would have high expectations of getting anything. Isn't that what they should really do?
It's absolutely amazing that's what.
Well, I'll tell you what. It had no effect when we sent out the blind listener to check out to see if things had improved. And we're not talking about the service, by the way. There's nothing wrong with the service. I mean, the standard of service is at the highest in the history of the state, and they're continuing to upgrade. It's the people using it who are the problem. So let us ask today if it's possible. If you're using the Lewis, if you're on Intercity, if you're using the Dart, if you're on any of the services, any of the public transport services, that if you see somebody who's old, who's obviously infirm, who's sick, or who looks like they're going to faint, or who's old, or who's pregnant, consider for a moment the ancient code of honour, whereby those who were better off than others gave of their ability to make life better, even for a few moments, by getting up and giving their seat to the person who deserves it. Is there even one person listening today who's going to do that? And if you witness it happening, maybe you'll ring us before 12 or even tomorrow. Thank you, Lorraine.
Okay, thank you, Gerry.
Sorry for mixing you up with the mythical Monica.
It's okay.
Who I'm sure is out there somewhere and dying to get on the show.
Yeah.
All right, good morning to you.
Thanks, Gerry. Bye.
Good morning to you. And we should really get on to poor old beleaguered Barry Kenny and Indra there and ask if there's any plans to bring in legislation whereby seats would be set aside, particularly for the kind of people that we've been talking about, and where there would be sanctions if you didn't bloody well get up and give them over. Why do I think that'll never happen? Saddam Hussein's execution, in fact his internationally public execution now, as courtesy of a video camera and a camera phone, marks the end of a brutal era in Iraq. Or does it? Saddam and his sons Uday and Qusay destroyed thousands of lives. Uday's double, Latif Yahia, is just one of them. Latif spoke to us, you may remember, chillingly back in 2003 and told us of his life as he joined the Hussein family on regular occasions, doubling as Uday, travelling the country in order to take the heat off Uday, an extraordinary young man himself, and I mean that in the worst sense. He had to do terrible things. He had to endure terrible things. He had to risk his own family being kidnapped and executed if he did not do the things that Saddam Hussein and indeed his associates and his advisors demanded of Latif, and he spoke to us of these things back in 2003 and of his extraordinary escape from Iraq. He's back to tell us more of his extraordinary, of course, his extraordinary story. We always knew there was more to it, and the new book is called The Black Hole. Latif, good morning and welcome.
Good morning to you, Gerry.
Now, when we last spoke, you told us of the job you had, the extraordinary and the bizarre job and the chilling things that you witnessed doing that job as you impersonated Uday Hussein. First of all, to allow him do things that he would not be held responsible publicly for, because they'd be able to say, no, he was in another part of the country. And also for his own physical, personal protection, you were wheeled out as him on public occasions. And you were living under threat that your family would either be kidnapped, incarcerated, imprisoned, or possibly even killed if you didn't cooperate. And you had to participate in some dreadful and terrible things. Before we continue on with that story, let me ask you, because of course the timing is perfect today as we expect the execution of the Chief Justice of Iraq and indeed Saddam Hussein's half-brother. How do you feel about the execution of Saddam Hussein himself, the way it was carried out, and the effect that it will have?
I'll be very honest with you. I am against the death penalty for anybody, any human in this world, Saddam Hussein or not Saddam Hussein. Yes, I was opposition 15 years against this regime. I fight him. I wrote books. I did every single thing to take out all the dirt what they did. Just about the execution, as a lawyer, I am against the execution anywhere in the world. And because I'm working for peace and around the world now, the footage what's being shown in worldwide, I send it. I received it from Baghdad, and the minute I received it, I sent it to Al Jazeera TV. And from Al Jazeera, I sent it to all the media, because the guy what he sent me, we have a political problem since we was in the opposition area. Mm-hmm. And this guy, he's not Iraqi, he's Iranian, just he have an Iraqi name, and he's the head of security in Iraq. He sent me this footage, and he said to me, I'm sorry about your father's death, ha ha ha. This is in his email, plus the video what he sent it to me. I called Al Jazeera and I called a couple of TV I know, and I sent the footage, and straight away was there.
That's incredible. So the guy who took the footage sent it to you,
yes,
knowing that you, of course, had been Saddam Hussein's son's double.
Yes.
And also very close to Saddam Hussein himself as well. I mean,
yes,
you had close contact and close relationship with him.
True.
So he was What did he mean, I'm sorry for your father's death? Was he mocking you?
He mocking me, he slagging me, and he said to me, we get you one after one.
So we'll get you as well.
Yes. He threatened me because we have a political problem. This is in the 90s back, when we was in the site what called Iraqi opposition. This guy, he was working for Iranian intelligence service. After then moved to the CIA, to MI5, and they give him an Iraqi name. His name not Iraqi. And they give him Iraqi name, and they put him now the head of home security in Iraq.
And is this the guy who has been arrested?
No. They blaming some poor soldier sitting there, and the footage. I have the email, I have the date, I have the.
You
time.
have the footage. You have the email that came directly from this camera phone.
Yes, from camera phone, full footage. Straight away, I put it in my website, and I called Al Jazeera and I sent it to them.
So that's how it got around the world.
Yes.
So you think that the guy that this three-man team who have been called upon by the Iraqi government to investigate this...
There was just two persons they have in the camera.
Yeah.
And they who killed Saddam Hussein wasn't justice or... the ambassador of Iran was there. I'm talking about 100% sure information coming from inside. And 12 person from militia Al-Sadr and couple Iranian intelligence service. This is mean all the business, all the propaganda we saw was Iranian American.
Why do you think that is?
And
I know the Iranians recently have been speaking to the Iraqis for the first time in a long time.
No, because the Islamic group that was supported by Iran in London and Ireland and Germany, they're all supported by Iran, the Shia, people. And since the fall of Saddam, the Shia, they took the power. And Iran now, I'm not counting Iraq as Iraq anymore. I'm counting as a state of Iran. They control the government, they control the south, north, west, every single meter in Iraq have Iranian intelligence service. They give citizenship for Iranian. 4 million Iranian has come past the border to Iraq, and they get the Iraqi citizenship, and they vote for what this propaganda of the election called.
Now, you say that you will never go back there yourself.
No, I'm never go back.
Do you believe, well, I think it's quite obvious now that the death of Saddam Hussein and indeed the method of his death and the images, of course, that you sent around the world have inflamed the people of, or at least Saddam Hussein's own people to an enormous degree, and probably caused a lot of tension and violence. But people here, maybe in Ireland, don't understand. Hanging somebody in Iraq, it's part of the penal culture. It's not unusual.
This is true. The death penalty is something like you drink a glass of water in Iraq or Middle East.
In Saudi, you could have your head chopped off with a sword.
Yeah, for 10 minutes, everything be done. Just the Iraqi people, as I'm Iraqi, I've been humiliated. I've been tortured by this government. My father has been killed by this government. Just when I saw the footage, as Iraqi, I was hurt. It's like, as you Irish, say, for example, some country come and invade your country, and you see Bertie Han, somebody hung him, from not Irish people. You still feel Bertie, he's your citizen, your blood, your country.
So even if, and not comparing the Taoiseach with Saddam Hussein,
I'm sorry, I'm comparing.
But even if you felt, and you do feel that Saddam Hussein did horrific things and was a tyrannical dictator, but even given that, you did not approve of his.
Yeah, because we want the justice, Iraqi justice, not Iranian American justice. You know what I mean?
The leading commanding officer in Iraq yesterday stated that the Americans did not have legal custody of him. They only had physical possession of him, and they were not responsible for his death or the method of it.
Everyone now blaming each other.
Yeah.
This is one. Secondly, Uday and Qusay has been killed by American. Yeah. This is mean the revenge of Iraqi. They didn't take it by Iraqi justice or Iraqi hand. Saddam has been killed by Iranian hand. Yes, they speak in Iraqi. Half the Iranian, they speak Iraqi because we are a close country to each other. Half of the Iranian speak fluid Iraqi accent. And about 20 of the government now, they don't have Iraqi citizen. They never was in Iraq. Just speaking Iraqi. And they are in the power. They control the country. This is why Al-Hakim, he want to split the South and say, this is my state. You know, Iraq is over. I told this, and I say that, you know, if you remember in 2003, Iraq is over. I don't count Iraq as Iraq anymore. You can't find Iraq in 50 years' time.
I know there's a movie script in preparation.
Yeah.
You've already talked to several very important and significant figures in the movie industry. Your story will eventually see the wide screen. Will you have your citizenship by then? I don't know. We shall see. But once again, Latif Yahya, it's been an extraordinary experience speaking with you about your continuingly unusual and extraordinary life. And thank you very much for sharing it with us this morning.
Thank you very much, sir.
Good morning and Happy New Year to you.
Same to you and all the Irish people.
Call the Ryan line now. 1850 715 922.
Through the door.
Oh, it's that time of the year, isn't it, yeah?
Yes.
The so-called charity bags.
Yes. Yeah. And again, I have no issue with that at all.
You should partially have an issue with it, because they're not all charities. However, go on.
Well, no, my main issue is that there's a suffocation hazard, and I have a toddler, and I have another baby on the way. And, I mean, my toddler handed me one of these plastic bags one day.
Yeah.
And we've gone around our house, we've put in, we've blocked off the sockets, we've, got door catchers so he can't catch his fingers in the door, we've, put everything that's dangerous out of his way, there's no trailing leads, and then somebody shoves plastic bags through my door.
How old is the toddler?
He's 20 months old.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect for sticking his head into it and suffocating.
Absolutely, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And what have you done to stop them putting the plastic bags through them?
Well, unfortunately, I can't actually block off the
No, because
letterbox.
then, you don't get any other mail either.
Yeah, I did actually consider collecting it at the post office. But,
no, that's not really a plan. You won't. That's too much trouble. You won't do that.
Yeah. I phoned most of the time their mobile phone numbers, and you can't actually get through.
Yeah.
I've got through to one of them and asked that person, did they have children? And they did, and they agreed that it was a terrible hazard. But, I mean, again, they're still coming through the door. I have a note on my door. I actually have a sticker on my door
saying no plastic bags.
No plastic bags, babies inside.
And they still
put them through the door. And there's 2 buggies in the hallway. So, I mean, even if you couldn't read, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Yeah,
but in all likelihood, I think no plastic bags. You don't have to be Shakespeare to figure out what that means,
Yeah.
And they still put them in, despite the flippant fact that you've got a note on the door.
Yeah. On the letterbox. So they'd actually have to lift the note out of the way, like the sticker, so you'd have to lift it out of the way. And I don't know who would be responsible. I don't know if, is it an offence to actually do this, to provide a hazard,
That's a very interesting point.
So,
I mean, I don't know what the rules and regulations, what the laws in relation to the way that you, for people doing mail drops, right? I know that sending hazardous materials through the post, there are rules and laws in relation to that. Yeah. But these are physically put in by people who are employed by the various charities or the other commercial organisations to do that. Isn't that what they come around the house, they stick them in with the little note or whatever it is to make you feel, positive towards whatever their ambition is.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. First of all, I just don't want them anyway.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm mean or I don't want to help people. I just don't want black plastic bags being shoved through my letterbox. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, these are brightly coloured.
Yeah, because we never get around to doing anything about them anyway. And, I heard, it might have been on Joe Duffy's live line, somebody, now this it wouldn't be as bad as a child, but nonetheless, it gave you an indication of the potential danger. It mightn't have been on Joe's programme, but I definitely heard it on the radio, was that the family dog ate the thing and choked to death.
Yeah, well, this is it. That's a huge hazard as well. Dogs and cats. Cats love them as well. And where at least with a baby, I mean, you're not going to leave a baby unsupervised. Now, this is into the hallway.
No, but he's at the age now when he's crawling around the place and beginning to sort of explore the world and stand up and pull down things. And all you have to do is pop into the toilet or,
just, again, even just answer the phone or something. I mean, babies, I work in a Dublin hospital, and I can tell you it does not take long, and you'd be amazed the things that they find that you mightn't even consider hazardous, and they're fighting for their lives.
Oh, sure. Listen, I have 5 of them. I've been down that road millions of times. You're going, that's amazing. So he swallowed a door handle. Believe you me, anything is possible.
It's unbelievable, the things.
Well, look, I'm not entirely sure what we can do about this, except to say very loudly this Monday morning, coming up to 10 o'clock, to those people who are involved in doing this, consider an alternative method. And
but
certainly,
are great.
But please consider that if somebody has a sticker up saying, no plastic bags, please, that's what they mean.
Yeah.
And I think it would be a holy and a wholesome thought if the organisations, and I'm sure that they're listening to this, might instruct the people who are putting the plastic bags into the letter boxes to be careful about where they're putting them. And, they won't know. It would be too much to ask somebody to telepathically divine whether there were children behind the door or not. But if there's a flippant sticker saying no plastic bags, well, then please observe it.
Yeah. I think as well, regardless, the children are our responsibility. Yeah. And unfortunately, it's a hazard that we have to be aware of because we're the ones that suffer the consequences.
Catherine, good morning.
Thank you very much.
And Stephen, good morning to you.
Good morning, Gerry. How are you doing?
Good, yeah.
Yeah. What I did, I blocked up the letterbox. We had a similar problem because we have a tortoise that rambles all over the house.
Yeah.
And he used to nibble on things like that come in.
He'd eat plastic bags, would he?
He'd eat anything that dropped on the floor, basically. He'd just chew away at it, So what we did was I blocked up the letterbox with a piece of timber, and I bought one of the post boxes in the hardware. They're about €30, I think it was at the time, and just fitted it to the outside wall. And that was the problem solved.
Problem solved. And where did you get... So it's like an American-style post box, was it?
Yeah. They're just a small little one. You see them on a lot of houses.
Yeah, I suppose what people are afraid of with those... I mean, they do seem to work in rural America all right, and in some suburban environments they seem to work quite well in the States. I think what the Irish are worried, we're so paranoid, be afraid that somebody come along and steal whatever was in it.
Who's going to rob your bills, Gerry? Let's be honest.
Who's going to rob your bills? And you're right.
You certainly aren't going to pay them for you.
Yeah, what else comes through the post except that?
That's it. And since then, what we did, we actually got a...
So the poor old tortoise ate the plastic. Did it do him any harm?
Not at all. Didn't bother him. Didn't bother him in the least.
What else would he eat, Stephen?
Well, I'd generally nibble away at that was around the place, If your shoes were there, he'd have a go at them, Just anything that comes into sight. But we've been safe for the past few months because he's gone for his little sleep. Anyway,
Tell me, and I'm fascinated by that because... I remember I had a tortoise and we sent him off to hibernate. We buried him and of course he died.
As he would.
You're not really meant to do that. Where is he asleep now?
Well, he's actually awake since yesterday. He goes into the front room, which we don't generally use, and there's a heavy rug there. And he got under that last October and he came out yesterday afternoon. I think he must have got the idea all this Christmas crap is finished, time to get out again to normality.
So he got under the rug last October?
October, yeah.
Stayed there until yesterday?
And stayed there till yesterday.
That's incredible, isn't it?
Now, he just got out, had a little bit of a ramble, not too far, but didn't bother eating anything yet. But that's the general way he goes, Next day or two he'll start eating.
How old is he?
He's 7 years old.
And is he aggressive?
No.
Because I've got, my second eldest fella, he's got 2 turtles. Though I do most of the looking after them, to be honest. But they're the most vicious little... Yesterday I was trying to clean out their the filter in their tank. I had my hand in the tank and I was talking to somebody else. And I couldn't believe it. One of them, gets me by the finger. Now, you think these guys are... You think that they wouldn't be able to do much damage. I'm telling you, it was painful. And they're very aggressive. You put them on the ground and they'll chase you.
Yeah.
They're the size of my shoe, but they'll still have a go at you.
Yeah, well, everyone will walk around after, especially if children come into the house. He has this thing about children. He'll follow children all over
But he's not aggressive, no. The turtles seem to be very aggressive.
No, he's not aggressive at all. But he's very small anyway. He's the smaller breed. He's a horsefelt, which he's only about... Where did you
get your post box, by the way?
I bought it in a little hardware on Ballymount Road there, Quinlan's Hardware. But most good hardware shops would have them,
€30. Good investment.
€30, like, I mean, if you're worried about your child's life...
And you're handy, you put it up, you're like the last fella, you put it up on the wall yourself, did you?
Yeah, unfortunately I'm too handy.
Really?
Everybody rings me.
Well, I've done a very good job of giving a very bad impression of myself in that department, so...
Yeah.
And I intend to keep it that way.
Well, that's what men should do for the future. When you're asked to do something, do it wrong first, and then you'll never be asked again.
Well, I think if I can go back to Marino 20 years ago, and I put up a set of shelves, and herself came in and had a look at them. She was very impressed.
Yeah.
She said, "That's good. Did you do that by yourself?" And I said, "Did, yeah." I said, "Do you see anybody else in the room?" "No." She said, "Okay, good. We'll start putting everything up on them now." Up went all the stuff, records and all sorts of things like that, and down came the shelves, and out came half the wall. And after that, I said to myself, right, well, I don't understand this process, so...
So that's the end of that.
We'll pay somebody like you to do
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Unfortunately, I don't get paid when I do this.
Or are you one of those guys who gets rung up?
Yeah.
Can you come down the gates after falling off?
Can you come down and just have a look? Like, why do they want you to go down just to have a look? What it means is you come down
will you come down and fix it, is what they mean,
That's the usual. Incidentally, another thing on the plastic bag issue, someone should get in touch with those people and tell them not to put them into any letterbox, just leave it on the doorstep outside. Because it's not as if any damage can happen to them. No,
but it probably oh no, you're right, because you could put the literature inside it, you know?
Yeah.
The little begging note could be put inside it.
That's it. But they didn't need to put the note there.
I mean, but is there anybody who actually ever puts anything into these bags?
I don't think so. I put them in the bin.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I use them for. I'll be perfectly honest. This may sound mean. This may sound like something out of, A Christmas Carol. I may be Mr. Scrooge's apprentice. But that's exactly what I would use them for. I'd use them as just another bag for the bin.
That's it. Well, unfortunately, you see, when you leave them bags out, I start work very early in the morning. I've actually seen people in vans going around and checking what's in the bags and taking what they want out of them. So if you wanted to go to charity, bring it to a charity shop yourself.
Exactly, Stephen. Thank you for that. Good morning.
No bother.
Kim, good morning to you. How are you?
Hi, Gerry. How are you doing?
Very good. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, I was, of course, exercising one of my obsessions earlier on this morning, playing snow patrols, chasing cars, and just reflecting. And I don't know whether people worry about this much nowadays, but it was always important to me and still is, as to why do certain songs do certain things to you, and why are they so important to you at certain times in your life. And Chasing Cars was a really significant piece of music in my life this last year, and it continues to be.
Yeah.
And what does it mean, though? Does it have to mean anything?
Yeah. Well, I was just talking to your researcher there about that, and I was listening to you. I'm here ironing.
Good girl.
And I've often heard you talking about that song before. Yeah. The first time I ever heard it, it was the last day of Big Brother last summer. They were playing it. The house was empty.
Yeah.
And everybody had left, and I heard it for the first time.
And it was incredibly significant and poignant.
Yes, because I remember it.
Yeah.
I have a 17-month-old and a 10-year-old, so I wouldn't be up to date with music, really.
But why? Think for a moment now. Why did it add poignancy to photographs and images from an empty television set?
Yeah, I thought it was just a very fitting song. Yeah. Well, but I thought it was the music first. I thought that I didn't even hear the lyrics really.
No, it's not even that though. It's the way he says, chasing cars. And you're going, what? First of all, chasing cars. So is it about a dog? What? No. It's just it's the phrasing.
Yeah.
That means something different to everybody.
Well, yeah, that's it. There's no truth. There's only interpretations of the truth. Isn't that what they say? Well, I just thought it was a great song, but, I don't buy CDs or anything like that, but I bought the CD for my husband for Christmas.
Good for you.
And secretly it was for me.
Yeah.
And I was playing it over and over the other day. I was driving into the pavilions with my 10-year-old in the back, and she was saying, "How long does that song last, Mammy, And I was playing the song over and over, and I thought I got what the song meant.
Yeah, go on.
Or what it meant to me, anyway.
What did it mean to you?
Well, we Twitter, we small talk, we ask people how are they, and we don't really care. We waste time. We waste time sort of on the peripheral, I think, a lot. And I was telling your researcher I started doing a counselling course there in September, and I've been doing a lot of reading, like, Carl Rogers and all that. And I think the song is about the writer was talking about a true encounter, a real encounter, when he says those 3 words are not enough, they're said too much.
I love you.
Yeah, he didn't even have to say it.
Yeah, but that's what he's talking about.
That's right.
Yeah.
He doesn't even say the word love, and yet it's a love song. And he also says, what else did he say? He said, I need your grace to remind me to find my own. Isn't it? He's talking about somebody who inspires him.
Yeah.
And I was just blown away by that the other day, because I wouldn't usually have the time to listen to the words of a song. But I just found the song just connected. And when you talk about it, you seem to feel the same.
Well, there's always something in the background, and obviously, when I talked about it before, there's always something in the background, and it was at an emotional time in my life, and it meant, I don't know, I can't really put in words what it meant to me, but it meant an awful lot. And when I think not a million miles away from what you've just said, is that I think what he's saying is, look, stop trying to guarantee that you're going to be happy, or that you're going to be with somebody, or that you're going to be in love. Have you got something for the next 5 minutes?
Yeah.
And if you have something for the next 5 minutes, celebrate it. And, it's that image of, and if I lay down, would you lie beside me? Not forever.
Yeah.
Would you do it now?
Yeah.
And if the other person says, yeah, okay, I will.
Yeah.
Stop going, but will you do it tomorrow as well, though?
Yes.
Just take it.
It's
take
the
it.
moment.
Yeah, and celebrate the moment.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, Lord, oh, Lord.
Gerry, I didn't often phone up, but I've phoned up a couple of times before.
And have you ever been on before?
No, never, no. And
and how long have you been listening to the programme?
Well, I've been listening to your programme for 10 years. I have a 10-year-old, and I had her when I was 23, and I was in a little flat, and I was by postnatal depression, and you came out of the radio 10 years ago to me. And I often wonder, do you know the way you touch people and how much you mean to people? You mean an awful lot. A lady wrote you a card last year there. It was in the autumn, and in the card, one of the girls was reading it out, and she was saying in the card that you're her psychologist, you're her friend. And I remember thinking, God, I never sent...
Trouble.
No, I said, I never sent Gerry a card like that, but I feel the same way. So I just wanted to let you know that you touch a lot of people, and you mean an awful lot to people. You mean an awful lot to me, and thank you very much.
Well, I'm speechless, to be honest, and thank you.
No problem.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Lynn, good morning to you.
Good morning, Gerry. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Not well.
No, you're not well at all. Sure, you're not. You're fuming.
I'm fuming. I can't breathe properly. I'm so angry.
So many fumes coming out of you that, in fact, you'd failed the breathalyzer test.
Indeed.
What are you fuming about?
I arrived home from work yesterday, and there was a letter in my door. It said, to the resident, on my address, and I opened it up, and it says, Dear Sir, Madam, and it's appallingly badly written, but it says, I'm writing to advise you that there is several of your neighbours, including myself, being stressfully disturbed by the constant barking of your dog. We've been disturbed by your pet on a number of occasions in the last several months. This includes kids' school nights and weekends when everybody needs their rest. If this continues, we will have no choice but to report the matter to the ISPCA and the Gardaí for cruelty and neglect to animals and disturbing the peace. And it goes on and on and on. And I am fuming. To so randomly accuse someone of cruelty and neglect. Our dog is actually a rescue dog who was cruelly neglected and who has the life of Riley in our house. He has never spent a night sleeping out in the back garden.
And does he bark?
No, he barks at someone. If you approach the house, he'll bark at you when he's in the house. But he's never out the back. He's never spent a night out the back. He's out the back during the day when I'm at work. and I come home in the afternoon. I do mornings. I come home in the afternoon, and he's in the house with me then until he goes out the next morning.
So he's never out at night time?
Never. He doesn't even
He
like
only
the dark.
barks when people come to the house?
Yes.
You're absolutely certain of that?
Yes, and I wrote a letter. It wasn't signed. It says just residents of the estate. So I wrote a letter saying...
Serial killer handwriting.
Typed very badly. So I wrote a letter to all my neighbours, and I posted it into all their letterboxes. And while I was doing
What reaction have you gotten to that?
Well, while I was doing it, one lady came out to me and she said, "Did you get one as well?" She has a very small dog that lives out her back garden that I've never heard barking. And then later on that night, a neighbour, we're only recently moved in, so a neighbour came around. She introduced herself and she explained that she lived in the house directly behind mine. She had nothing to do with that letter, and she has never heard my dog barking. And she's never seen him in the garden at night. She was lovely. She said she just wanted me to know she'd nothing to do with that. And I just told her I
What did you put in your letter?
I said, in response to your letter dated with reference to a barking dog causing a disturbance, I have to inform you that our dog is a house dog and is only in the garden for a few hours during the day while we are at work. We've had him for several months, and on no occasion has he spent a night in the garden or been in the garden late in the evening. However, if you feel the need to contact the Gardaí or ISPCA, we will cooperate in all ways to ensure you that it is not our pet. We're sorry you didn't feel able to knock on our door with your problem, as we are very approachable people, and apologies to anyone this doesn't concern. As the letter wasn't signed, we're sending this to everyone.
Good for you.
Well, I'm fuming that someone would so randomly accuse someone of neglect when there are serious neglect cases going on. I rang the guards this morning to make them aware that they were welcome to visit my house anytime and see my dog and what a great life he has. And they told me they had no interest in that. And if that person rang, they wouldn't listen to them. That's not something that they do. It's not noise pollution to have. I just am so annoyed that they randomly sent it to me and to another lady and possibly other neighbours who have dogs.
Lynn.
Yes.
You have been on the receiving end of bullshit.
Indeed. Of the highest degree,
Basic,
Gerry.
grade A bullshit.
Yeah, well, I hope they got my letter back.
So, you know what you have to do? You've just got to calm down. That's the first thing.
It's only that I know dogs that have been neglected, and I have a dog that's been neglected.
Yeah, but you see, that's irrelevant. What you've got to do now, you are insulted, you're hurt, you're embarrassed, and there's a whole host of other emotions that you're going through. They have now driven you into a frenzy, and frenzies make us do very strange things. I'm no stranger to that. I've done some of them myself. You just have to completely ignore this. Forget about it. Throw the letter in the bin. Don't do anything more about it. Don't think about it. Don't act about it. Don't talk to your neighbours about it. Don't do anything else that's going to draw unnecessary attention to you. Don't present yourself as psychotic, because at the moment that's what you're doing. And just get on with your life. You sound like a delightful, lovely woman. There is absolutely no need for you to be in this state.
But do you not think?
No, look, I'll tell you what. You have to reserve this for when the guards call you up and tell you that have you any children?
No. My dog is my child.
Okay, right. Okay, well then you're lucky then in a way. Are you married?
No.
God, double lucky, right. So you're living on your own. So the only thing that you have to worry about is your dog. Okay? Yeah. So that's what's happened to you.
No, I'm living with someone. I'm soon to be married and living with my dog.
Right, okay. So you're living with your dog and you're soon to be married. Is he in the premises?
Who? Yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now,
living in sin, Gerry.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. So you're in love?
Absolutely, yeah.
And you're soon to be married?
Yes.
That's what's important.
I know.
Not this ridiculous letter. I receive these letters. You should see the letters I get.
What do you do? Do you write
Well, no, I'll tell you what I'll do. In the beginning, I used to react exactly like you, and I'd get completely hysterical. First of all, I'd freak out. If it was at home, I'd give the family hell. I'd be ranting and raving about it. I might go to the guards. If it was in the office, which it frequently was, we used to actually get the guards in. We had developed a very close relationship with a wonderful detective down in Donnybrook, because we used to get these letters. Furthermore to what you said on Wednesday, the 5th of July, you are going to hell. I despise you. I am watching your family. I am taking Polaroids of your pornographic activities, etc., 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 right? And we'd have meetings with them, and we'd sit down and we'd talk to them, and they'd go away and they'd try and get fingerprints off. And then eventually I just realised that these people are just loopers. Forget about it.
Okay.
And good luck.
If they send me another one, I'll refer them to you.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Just don't even read it. Just send it to me.
Okay,
and
will
I'll
do.
put it into the same bin that I put the rest of my stuff, okay?
Okay, thanks, Gerry.
Good morning.
Bye.
Clodagh, good morning to you. How are you?
Hi, Gerry. Good morning.
You're listening in Russia at the moment.
I'm in Moscow at the moment, yes.
How delightful. What's the weather like?
It's a very grey day here.
Yeah.
There's no snow, actually, for a change.
Really?
Yeah.
I've visions of, that beautiful area where all those wonderful buildings are there, that we
Down at Red Square.
Yeah, Red Square. I've visions of that covered in a carpet of white snow and you there in a Dr. Zhivago hat reporting to me from Moscow. No, that's all nonsense.
It's not like that today, unfortunately.
Oh well. Now, you were listening the other day when we were talking about Tupperware parties.
I was indeed.
As a matter of fact, we talked about Tupperware parties with a difference, didn't we? Now, you host a thing called a sparkler party.
Sparkler parties, indeed, that's what we do. Sparkler parties are, what our product is, are desert diamonds. And desert diamonds are high quality simulated diamond stones, which are set in 18 karat gold. And what we do is we go to ladies' homes and we have what are called sparkler parties, where the ladies invite all their friends and have a cup of tea or a glass of wine or a glass of bubbly, and they'll try on, just like the Tupperware, they'll touch and they'll feel and they'll ooh and they'll ah, and then they buy lots of diamonds.
Now, are these the diamonds that the Russians make? Are these the artificial diamonds that De Beers in South Africa are so freaked about?
No. These are, they're actually from Thailand. They're not from Russia at all. They're
All right,
from
so
Thailand.
so they don't claim to be anything more than sort of costume jewellery.
Well, no, they'll be high-end costume jewellery.
Oh yes, no, and I'm sure that they are.
Yeah, everything's in 18 karat gold, and that's the difference.
Ah, very nice indeed. And you do this in Moscow, do you?
No, we do it in Ireland.
We do it in Ireland. What are you doing in Moscow?
I'm just here with work at the moment.
I see. What sort of work?
Yeah. My other job.
What's your other job?
I'm actually a flight attendant on a private jet.
Very nice. That's the girl. That's the girl. That's the way to be doing it. A flight attendant.
What we're talking about now are the sparkler parties, and that's my other job. That's my and actually I'm a sub distributor, and anybody that's
And what's the name of the sparklers? What are they called?
Desert diamonds.
What? Feather diamonds.
Desert diamonds.
Yeah.
They can be found on the internet. www.
Desert diamonds. Ah, yes, indeed.
Because they were originally found in Saudi Arabia, and that's where it all started, and then it moved to Thailand.
And when was the last party you held?
The last event I held was the Carlo Christmas Fair.
Yeah.
Down in the Delman Hotel just before Christmas.
And do they all go mad for the diamonds? Do they?
Love them.
Yeah, I'll bet.
They are stunning. They're absolutely stunning, and you cannot tell the difference between the desert diamonds and a real diamond.
Well,
the only difference is the price, and that's our market.
And it's not a big difference, is it?
It's a huge difference.
Okay, I've got a picture here from the Desert Diamond website.
Yeah.
And they are very beautiful, some of the pieces there. There's a pair of earrings and also a beautiful ring with a very large diamond. Brilliant cut. Absolutely lovely.
If you saw it in reality, you'd be blown away. You really would.
I tell you what, we'll have to have a Gerry Ryan Show Desert Diamonds party. What about that?
That sounds absolutely fantastic. It can be arranged anytime.
Okay, when you come back from your secret mission in Moscow, you give us a shout and we'll get together and organise it, okay?
Fantastic. That's absolutely brilliant. Thanks very much.
Okay, have a good day.
Thank you very much, Gerry. Take care.
Bye-bye. That's Clodagh. When she's not selling desert diamonds at diamond sparkler parties, she's a flight attendant on a private jet. And I know you're all trying to figure out whose jet it is too, aren't you? Anne, good morning.
Hello, how are you?
Very good. How are you? Welcome.
Grand, thank you. I've just come out, just done my shopping and I'm knackered.
Are you? You poor thing. You poor thing.
Going home for a well-earned cup of tea.
And make one for me as well while you're at it.
I will.
Now, going back to leaving the baby.
Yeah. I didn't leave the baby, but my mother left me.
Your mother left you?
She left me, yeah.
How tragic.
A long, long time ago. I'll be giving my age away if I tell you how many years. Will I tell you?
Go on.
57.
57 years ago.
Yeah. I was only a couple of weeks old, and she went off to do a bit of shopping, you know, as you do. And you've had a new baby, buying a few bits and pieces, and she went into the butcher's that she used to go to all the time before she had me. And she went and did a few bits and pieces. She came home, and she went about her daily chores. My dad came home from work around 5:30 in the evening, and he said, "Where's Anne?"
"Where's the baby?"
"Where's the baby?" She said, "What?" And he said, "Where's Anne?" And she just, oh my God, straight out the door. Mother and father, straight out the door.
But like, this wasn't 20 minutes later, this is hours later.
This is hours later.
Yeah.
I mean, she went out in the morning, and this is, 5:30 in the evening.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and your hormones must have been all over the place.
How old were you at this stage?
Couple of weeks old.
Couple of weeks old, yeah. Sure,
Yeah.
God help the poor woman. She was probably deranged.
I know how she feels. I've got 4 daughters of my own, you know.
Yeah.
But she, anyway, the two of them raced off, and of course, there was no pram outside the butcher's.
Oh,
but the butcher's was still open, yeah. And the couple that ran the butcher's, they knew my mother and father well.
Yeah.
And the woman had taken me in and did whatever she had to do to make me happy and comfortable for the day, bought and changed my nappy and fed me and all that. And just...
I thought you were going to tell me, yep, she's in the freezer. I'll go into the cold room and get her for you now.
Not quite. Not like them two kids sticking their feet out the freezer.
Oh, that was classic, wasn't it?
That was really... I was driving over here to Blanchardstown and I heard that, and I couldn't stop laughing in the car.
That was classic. The two fellas from Chernobyl who
those
jumped
two
into the freezer when they were out with the host mother, and she found them. She was terrified they were going to wreck the Tesco supermarket that they were in, and she found them with their legs sticking out of the freezer, the rest of their bodies inside, eating raw McCain's chips.
Can you imagine? They must have had stomach pains for weeks after.
Well, not, but they said these guys sounded like they were eating ornamental candles, so I can't...
Oh, God. I don't even want to go
a few
there.
frozen chips wouldn't affect them. But that's good, though. Your mum left you for several hours, from early in the morning until 5:30 in the evening.
Yeah, until my dad discovered. And she, I think if my dad probably had been not home for the next day working or something, I don't think she probably would.
She wouldn't have come back at all for you.
Yeah, she's frightened to remember.
Funny, though, how the butcher's wife didn't bring you up. Maybe she was that.
Maybe she had, I don't know.
Maybe it's like one of those fairy tales where, you go, oh, no, it's like Superman.
Yeah.
The way you keep the baby you find.
Yeah.
Who knows, you might have developed special powers.
Yeah, maybe I have special powers and I haven't discovered them yet. I don't know. But anyway, this poor unfortunate woman took me in and did, as I said, the necessary. And I was as happy as Larry. Never had any...
Well, I think at that age, once you're dry and once you're fed and once somebody pays a bit of attention to you, you're fine. You're grand.
I think if I'd have been about 5 or 6, I'd have...
Oh, no, that would have been a nightmare. You'd have run out in the road probably at that point.
Yeah.
Everything else okay?
Yeah, you said about losing one of your children.
Yeah. Oh,
when my first little one was a year and a half, she was fast asleep. I was driving over to Crumlin Shopping Centre, and she was only, as I said, a year and a half old. She was in one of these child seats in the back, the safety lock thing on it. And I literally had 2 things to buy, and I parked the car right outside the door where I could see it, right? And because she was fast asleep, and I said, no, I'll leave her. And I just literally nipped out the car, locked it, and the 2 items I had to buy were literally at the checkout, the way...
Yeah.
Just lucky. And I was just at the checkout paying, and I looked up, and there she was standing there between 2 men. God. With a packet of Smarties in her hand and crying. And the 2 men said, we found her wandering around the car park. She was able to open the lock on the child seat.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And she was able to open it. She got out of the car and was wandering around the car park. I couldn't believe it. Okay,
Take
thanks,
care.
Gerry. Bye.
Now, there's a lot of people who would like to be in Mr. Beckham's football boots this morning after news that the 31, is he 31 or 34? Well, we'll confirm that in a minute, has signed a 128 million sterling, that translates into $250 million package with the Major League American soccer side LA Galaxy. His annual earnings could top 50 million sterling per year, making him one of the world's richest sportsmen. But more importantly, what about the wife, Posh? Will she bring her hairdresser with her? Will she love the move, or will she hate it? Will the transition be good for her? After all, she didn't like the trip to Madrid, didn't like it at all. Joining me now on the line is a man who knows, Paul Martin, showbiz correspondent with the Irish Daily Mirror, to speculate. Well, no, not speculate, because he always knows the truth. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Gerry.
Welcome. How are you? Happy New Year, by the way.
And to you too.
Now, this is not a move like the move to Real Madrid. This is a move that I deeply suspect Mrs. Beckham is going to absolutely adore.
I think this is definitely the one for her. It's almost like they've traded off, and you know, they went to Madrid for his football career, and they're going to LA now for her shopping habit. It's I think she'll fit in I think she'll fit in very well in LA. Not so sure about Beckham, but definitely, I mean, Posh Spice has been over there. In fact, she spent quite a lot of time over there, even when David Beckham was playing for Madrid, hanging out with different record producers and different fashion icons. So
that's right, wasn't she hanging out with some sort of hip-hop guy, one of these
I think Damien Dash or something he was called, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was a hip-hop guy who was meant to be at the time, apparently, producing a new album for her, and it never really saw the light of day when a solo single failed miserably. But yeah, she has been over there. She knows the crowd, and of course, you know, they're great mates as well with the likes of, you know, Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes. They're at their wedding, so they've got a lot of showbiz pals over there.
How well are they known, though, Paul? I mean, obviously the guy internationally in Europe and Asia, and in fact almost everywhere else except the United States, he's a household name, whether it's because of his association with soft drinks or football or his clothes or the scents or whatever it happens to be. Is he known in the United States?
I mean, the answer to that is not that well, and he's not known that well over there, and this is where the really big challenge comes in. I mean, obviously, from a football point of view, it's a big risk for him to take because, in a way, it's kind of like the dark water of the football world, going over to America to wind down your career. Obviously, the money is a massive motivation to do that. In terms of the showbiz side of it, he's going to have to really start from scratch. Not that many people, as you say, know him over there.
They are going to want him, though, on the Leno Show and the Letterman Show. Cohn and the rest of them, they're all going to want him.
They will, but if he has any staying power, I mean, in America, as you well know, Gerry, the big sporting icons are playing in the NFL. They're playing in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They're playing, you know, in the NBA finals or the baseball. These are the big guys, the Michael Jordans, you know, the John Elways in American football. They're the icons, and they're worshipped. I mean, they're absolutely worshipped everywhere they go. Beckham's going to go in there, and of course, yes, there will be a curiosity factor. This guy is coming and playing soccer and getting this much money. How does that happen? God, you know, and there'll be that whole side to it. But, I mean, once that subsides, then, you know, it's going to really be down to him. How will he market himself? You know, can he get himself some kind of a big advertising campaign? Can he be the face of a major cosmetics company? He needs to do all of that over there to be on the agenda. And even then, you know, that might not be enough. These guys like Michael Jordan are always on TV. They're being packed everywhere they go. They're appearing in major motion pictures. They're doing the whole package, and that's why they are at the top of their game.
And of course, Beckham has been quite astute with the products that he's associated himself with: Adidas, Gillette, Motorola, Pepsi. Jordan and the rest of them, you know, they're on every cereal box. I mean, they'll advertise almost anything.
Yeah. I mean, if you win the Super Bowl in America, you get an instant cover of the Cheerios cereal box. So I mean, there's so many, and you get to Disney World as well, by the way, if you win the MVP in the Super Bowl, but and get paid a lot of money for it. But the simple fact of the matter is, he won't have really any of that, and he won't have any of that when he goes over there. He will have to start from scratch, and this is where it becomes fascinating because David Beckham is a man who's used to having thousands of press and photographers following his every single move. And, you know, yes, for the first 2 or 3 months in America, that will be the case as well, mainly from probably the European media, just to see how he gets on over there. But once that subsides, it will be interesting to see if the American media, you know, if he catches their imagination or not.
Now, do you know anything about this team that he's going to, the LA Galaxies? Like, I suppose, many motion picture stories. I'm thinking immediately of Heaven Can Wait with James Mason and Warren Beatty in it. You know, the guys who own these these teams, whether it's baseball or basketball or football, often tend to be billionaires for whom the team is but a hobby.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that going on. I mean, the American soccer league didn't really take off the way they thought it would after USA '94. There was a lot of talk that this was going to be it's going to be like a new premiership over in America.
Lady soccer's bigger.
Yeah, well, that is actually the blunt reality of the whole thing. Lady soccer is huge over there, but I mean, in terms of the actual team that he's joining, I don't know that much about them. They're certainly not on the agenda in terms of world football or anything. And I suppose, in a way, from their point of view, it could be quite a shrewd move. I'm sure their shirt sales will go up around, the UK. You might even see a few of them appearing on Grafton Street in the near future. But whether or not, we're going to be hearing much about Beckham's football from this point, I don't know. Look, I'm a big football fan. I was disappointed to hear that he was going over there from a football point of view, because I still think he's probably got 2 or 3 good years left in him.
Well, certainly, I heard somebody yesterday very stupidly compare the move to the moment when George Best decided to go and play in the United States. There's no comparison. Best, maybe still for my money, himself and Pele neck and neck, maybe it's the 2 greatest footballers of all time. But by the time George had gotten to America, it had all fallen apart. That's not the case with Beckham.
No, it's not. I mean, this is a guy who could probably have joined, bar Manchester United, because of Alex Ferguson, could have joined any major Premiership football force and probably walked straight into the first team. And instead he's going over to this league. I mean, nobody's really going to know whether he's a success or a failure on the football pitch over there. I think he's also probably, being realistic about it, he's just decided he sacrificed his England career as well. That's completely over now.
Yeah, that's gone.
Some people said it was, over after the World Cup, but I still think that, he could have worked his way back into the England lineup if he had, put in a good season next year for a big Premiership team or another Spanish team. But I think that's all gone now. So really, Beckham's made a major gamble here. He's basically going down the showbiz line rather than the sport line. Of course, the football will bring in the money, and he will put in, he's a total professional. He will put his heart and soul into the team. But really, the only major success he can have over there is in a showbiz sense rather than a sporting sense now.
So now, of course, Mrs. Beckham will take care of the house and the clothes and all that, the social life included, I presume, as well. They've got to live in the Hollywood Hills. I wonder where they'll get a house.
Well, I'm sure Tom Cruise will have a few ideas. I mean, they're like best mates now, aren't they? And also brace yourself for the inevitable flurry of stories in the tabloids and the broadsheets as well of, them being attracted to Scientology. Tom Cruise will think this is a major chance to get Beckham on board and Victoria, and, he's right on their own doorstep now. So you'll find all these weird and wacky stories coming out about them. But in terms of their house, I mean, well, when you get $250 million for 3 years' work, for 5 years' work, rather, I suppose you can take your pick. And, these people also, when these celebrities move over there, they have these agents who literally hook them up with absolutely everything they need in the space of about a week. From the Bentley to the chauffeur to the private jet and the house, it's all a big package, and it's all put on your lap, probably for a princely sum of about $50 million. You get the whole thing. I
hadn't thought about the Scientology, without being cruel to either David Beckham or Posh, and I like them both. I like them. I think they're good fun. They've stuck together through difficult times. He's a very talented footballer. She's talented at getting a talented footballer for a husband. But they're perfect for Scientology. They're perfect.
They are. They're fair game, really, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, either that or Madonna will get them into Kabbalah or something. I don't know.
Absolutely.
But I mean, there's going to be something. There has to be. So they can't just go over there and not join some kind of cultish religion. It has to almost happen by default. It's probably part of the contract. But no, I mean, those kind of stories will come out. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. If there's one thing they are used to handling, to be fair to them, they're very good at handling the press and the media. And anything like that, they will actually use to their advantage. Victoria Beckham, really, the only thing we haven't touched on is she really has nothing to lose because, yes, she's famous for being famous now, but in terms of career, people won't in America, people in the States won't say, oh gosh, there's Victoria Beckham, that's, the girl who failed to launch a solo pop deal, or, they'll just think, well, she's, David Beckham's wife, she's a kind of an unknown factor there. So if she achieves anything at all over there, she'll be seen as a big success. Whereas anything she does here is always going to be seen as like, well, it wasn't as good as when you were in the Spice Girls selling 50 million albums.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. The Americans, the one thing they have is the open-hearted welcome, and they allow you leave your baggage on the shores of Europe, and that's exactly what they will do with this pair. Thank you very much for bringing us up to date, that Paul. Look forward to seeing you backstage at Westlife or somewhere like that.
I'll see you there, Gerry, no problem.
Take care, goodbye.
Cheers, Gerry, bye.
That was the Ryan Weekly, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed putting it together. Don't forget, if you've something on your mind, give us a ring on 1850 715. Paul, good morning to you.
Gerry, how are you doing? Good morning to you.
Very good. You're in a bit of trouble.
I am, sort of.
With wigs. fancy dress.
Yeah.
What's the problem?
Every time I see a wig or a fancy dress, I just get jitters from train now. Like
Every time you see wigs or fancy dress, what do you feel?
I just get jitters.
You get the jitters.
Yeah, sort of, and I start to get sick.
You start to get sick.
Yeah, I don't know why. I've been like that for a long time now. And
does the wig have to be, or indeed the fancy dress? Does it have to be on somebody?
Yeah.
And if it's on somebody, then you don't feel well.
I don't feel well at all. No. I get the sort of sensation up on my arms and all, and
you get a sensation up your arms. Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. And I've been to see about people and they don't know what it is either. And it's a strange thing to have, isn't it?
Certainly is. And what is there any type of fancy dress that's more disturbing than others?
Not really. No.
Well, what about a fairy outfit compared to an admiral's uniform?
That would be all right. Anyone dressed as a priest or anyone like that, like
anyone dressed as a priest
or a guard or anything like that, that's okay. But anyone with this fake beard on it, or
fake beard,
yeah, or anything like that,
like somebody dressed up as a pirate.
Yeah.
Would that have a bad effect on you?
That would, yeah.
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 And is the effect? I mean, do you become excited or do you become frightened? What? Or just anxious?
I'm just anxious, like, you know what I mean? It's a sort of an anxious sensation that I have all the time, and I'm just wondering, is anyone out there that had the same thing? Anyone out there that
when did this start happening?
Happened when I was very young. I was about 10 or 12 years of age, and I went to a party one night, and I just seen this person, and we can.
Somebody wearing a wig at a party.
I just started getting sick.
And you started getting sick.
Yeah.
And had they done anything to you?
No. But years ago, I think that you see, we have an old place here at home, and there's a big graveyard, and there was one of the guys, a friend of mine, he did a trick one night, and he lay down on one of the tombstones and dressed up with this white gown on. That's what really frightened the shit out of me, really.
So he'd jump up from the grave wearing a white gown and scare.
Yeah, but I was there, like, but I didn't really know who it was. I walked in unintentionally, you know what I mean? So.
How old would you have been then?
I say it was about 7.
7.
Yeah.
And were you in a graveyard at night time at the age of 7?
Well, it was because we were in the scouts and well, kind of chicken these girl guides and that kind of way.
Right. And he jumped up from the grave wearing the sheet. It scared the living daylights out of you. And ever since, you've been terrified of fancy dress.
Yeah.
Wonder where the wigs part of it came from.
I don't know. I wonder, is there anyone out there? Do you know anyone out there that can cure that?
A hairdresser?
Maybe so, but that's a good reason. But I just like to get it cured once and for all.
All right. Well, we'll certainly look into it, I think.
Yeah.
Therese is quite interested in trying to find somebody for you.
Right.
Aren't you, Therese? Where do you live, Paul, roughly?
I live in the Wexford area.
And do you have a job?
I don't. Not yet, no.
Not yet?
Not yet.
What are you hoping to do?
I'm hoping to do, I don't know, driving or something, or I don't know. Whatever comes up, I'll take it.
Good man. How old are you?
I'm 39.
39?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on a second. I think we might actually have an explanation for this, do we? Yeah, hold on a second. Therese is just working on something at the moment. She has your best interests at heart, Paul.
Lovely.
Good. Would you be... Oh, can you tell me the difference between which ones make you...
I can. The ones that feel shaggy and stuff, do you know what I mean? Them old cheap, them old ones, you know what I mean? They would... Shaggy
wigs would make you more anxious than, for instance, the kind of wig that Sean Connery would wear.
Yeah.
Right. And now, as luck would have it, I have on the other line Alison Keating, who's a psychologist, Right. And in fact, she's from the Be Well Clinic in Malahide in Dublin. And
Right.
she apparently has some experience. She's a behavioural psychologist in the world of phobias and indeed how to cure them. So
Very good.
I'm going to bring her in here. Alison, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Gerry. How are you?
Very good. Have you been listening to Paul there?
I heard some of it, I did, yes.
He's got a phobia about wigs, particularly shaggy ones and fancy dress. He's not worried about gardas or military uniforms or anything like that, but anything that involves, like, for instance, a pirate or something like that would makes him very anxious.
Okay.
Say hello,
Paul.
Paul.
Hi, Paul. How are you?
How are you?
How's it going?
Not too bad.
And did anything happen, something traumatic in relation to fancy dress or...
I can't remember. Do you know what I mean? It's so long ago. I just can't remember like what.
Well, there was an incident in the graveyard when he was 7 when a fella dressed in a white sheet jumped up and frightened him.
Okay, that'd be pretty scary.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, that actually could have triggered. I mean, that, like, normally with a phobia, it's either a learned response or it's a traumatic response to something that was quite scary. And at 7, I mean, if I saw that happening now, I'd be very scared.
Right.
So would I.
So, I mean, always it's your unconscious mind. It's a protective mechanism. That's what the point of the phobia is. But then we overgeneralize. So perhaps, did you say you had a fear of dolls as well?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's actually pediophobia, which is actually quite common.
Pediophobia?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, pedia is a child, so an phobia of dolls. But I wonder, what about the wigs on dolls?
Wigs on dolls, that's a good point.
Would that actually concern you?
Yeah, with Waterman here.
Okay. But why would shaggy wigs concern you?
I don't know, because it looks scruffy, you know. You know what I mean? It looks really sick.
Sick?
Yeah.
And did you actually know anyone who had actual hair or a wig that looked scruffy and that they were sick?
No. Do you know what I mean? Like, they look sick looking like.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
The thing with phobias, Paul, is that actually most times, I'd say 98% of the time, people don't remember why they actually have the phobia in the first place.
Right.
And actually understanding it sometimes isn't going to actually make you feel any better about it.
Yeah.
Because a phobia, as I said, it's just your unconscious mind trying to protect you. But that time, it's probably past now, you know, when you actually had the instant when the phobia, you know, arose in the first instance.
What can be done for him, Alison?
Okay. What we would do is, I would recommend that, first of all, we look at how this is affecting you in your everyday life.
Right.
How does it affect you?
It doesn't affect me every day. If I see something, just say a night like,
okay,
and a fancy dress like, even on the street,
sure,
I just go into one corner and start, vomiting.
You actually get sick.
So Halloween must be terrible for you.
Halloween is absolutely dreadful, Gerry.
Well, that's a very strong response to it.
Yeah, he vomits.
Wow. Okay. Well, what I would do is I would see, obviously it's quite specific, so maybe it's around Halloween time.
Yeah.
Even St. Patrick's Day, people are wearing kind of shaggy green wigs.
That's another thing, yeah.
Yeah. And even Christmas time, people are wearing more fancy dress now as well.
Yeah.
But we would see, we would begin to compartmentalize it, because sometimes we think it's in all situations,
right.
but actually it's quite specific. So then we'd use NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, and all that's doing really is it's the way you think about this is creating a really strong physiological response.
Right.
And you actually are creating that.
Right.
Does that make sense? Even though you mightn't feel like you're in control of it, how you're thinking about it then actually creates the physical response of actually vomiting.
Yeah.
So what we would do is we would need to bring down your response to it being a normal response, which is that maybe you mightn't even like wigs in the future, but that you wouldn't have such a strong physical response to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, stay on the line, Paul, because we're going to take some details and we're going to get you into contact with Alison. Tom, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Gerry.
Now, I think I was correct in saying that traditionally we were, and this is going back hundreds of years, we were a flowery potato nation. That's what we liked. That's what we grew.
That's correct.
Why was that, do you think?
Well, it goes back to the famine times, because at the famine times we were 90% of the population were eating waxy potatoes, and the wealthier sections were eating flowery potatoes. So very quickly after the famine, all the people wanted to go to flowery potatoes. And that's 150 years ago or more. So from that time up to about 5 or 6 years ago, we were on flowery potatoes.
And what in fact is the difference between the two potatoes?
Well, of course, it's all got to do with the palate and taste and so on. The floury one, of course, is very dry. It's a good flavour, we would say, and it's a high dry matter content. The waxy potato has a low dry matter content, and of course is more soapy in nature.
And now the floury potato, an example of that would be, for instance, the Golden Wonder, wouldn't it?
All the varieties that we traditionally grow here are floury potatoes.
Now, everywhere else, though, in Europe, they seem to opt for the waxy, and the finest restaurants, the Michelin star providers, they seem to opt for the waxy, don't they?
Every country in Europe wants waxy potatoes except Ireland.
Except Ireland.
The only other country that will have some floury potatoes is Scotland, but we are really the exceptions in Europe.
And of course, it's easier to cook a waxy potato, isn't it? It's easier to present it because of its nature. It's harder, it absorbs less water, therefore it's more difficult to make a hames of cooking it. With the floury potato, it's easier to make a hames of cooking it.
That's correct. The floury ones tend to go in the water, as the housewives will tell you.
Yeah.
You should really steam our floury potatoes. Right. That's the ideal way to cook them, I'd say. Because varieties like Golden Wonder that are very floury, they do really go in the water when you boil them.
Now, I can't but presume that there is evidence to indicate an urban-rural divide in this particular debate.
Well, somewhat, I suppose. I suppose it's mainly got to do with the fact that the people in rural Ireland have greater access to our traditional varieties like Rooster, Record, Pinks and so on. And in the urban areas, in the bigger cities, we tend to be using more imported potatoes. And in particular, our hotels and restaurants. Now, virtually all of our hotels are now serving up these small, round, waxy, soapy potatoes. There are two varieties called Nicola and Charlotte, and they're coming from Israel and France. So you really, if you have a meal in a hotel anymore, you just don't get a dish of floury potatoes served up to you, particularly in their skins where they're bursted open.
Oh, lovely. Smothered in butter or sour cream with a light dusting of bacon.
How long is it since you saw that?
Well, it's a long time, I can tell you.
Yes.
Very long time. As a matter of fact, it would be years.
Correct.
Since I've seen that in a restaurant.
Correct. Our hotels, an occasional restaurant, are alert to the situation. But virtually 100% of our hotels are serving up these little small, what I call marbles with hair oil. And you see, they're suitable for the chefs because they will cook uniformly. They're all small, they'll cook uniformly, they're easy to handle, and they don't just bother to inquire from the van man that's sending them in the stuff. They just take what they get, they find them easy to cook, and onto the plate, and we just accept them.
And they're tasteless.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they are absolutely tasteless. I don't even like the colour of them.
Bars of soap.
Bars of soap actually is a very good description. Now, of course, there are also risks in growing the floury potato, which makes it even less attractive to the farmer, isn't there?
Well, that's particularly true with the variety Golden Wonder. Now, Golden Wonder is only 5% of our acreage anymore, but it suffers from a disorder called internal rust spot. And, once you get internal rust spot in a crop potatoes, well, that's it. You won't be anxious to grow Golden Wonder anymore because you just cannot sell them. There are little brown spots inside in the flesh of the potato, and when you cook it, the whole potato goes black. So our poor old Golden Wonder is in major decline, very much because of that disorder, which happens in dry summers.
And there's nothing we can do to eradicate that, no?
No, not really.
Now, quick question from a listener. What are roosters, floury or waxy?
Well, they would be floury, of course, but they would be the least floury of our traditional varieties.
Yeah. And they only came here back in the early 90s, as a matter of fact.
Correct, introduced in 91.
Yeah. And, in fact, they're a good compromise if you're not too keen on the trouble that's involved in getting, cooking a floury potato just right.
Yes.
They tend to hold their body much better.
That's correct.
Than the Golden Wonder does.
That's correct.
Now, if you're going to mash potato, what's the best for that?
Well, you can mash all varieties, really.
Yeah, but if you mash these little marbly things, you always end up with little bits in the mashed potato that you cannot, even if you use, a liquidizer, you can't get rid of them.
That is perfectly correct. I mean, if I was mashing potatoes, I'd go for Golden Wonder or Record or Pinks. They're the ones I would use,
Yeah.
And they're going to give you a drier type of mash, if you like, than these waxy ones.
And then throw in a little cream then in on top of that. And just...
Yes.
whip it around and whoa, yes indeed. Let's see now what they're saying. We asked this morning in our Ryan Line online poll, do you want floury or waxy potatoes? Which do you prefer? Text Y for floury and N for waxy. Isn't that what we asked them to do? To Y for floury, N for waxy, to 087 772 0000. 75% say floury.
Good, that's the stuff.
Isn't that the stuff, isn't it?
They're true Irish people.
Yeah. Now, where do you stand on reconstituted or hydrolyzed potatoes?
Well, I'd stand poorly on it, really. You cannot beat the fresh product, the recently steamed product landed onto your plate. I mean, it's got to be number one. And once you start to move away from it, you're going down the ladder.
I mean, it was smashed. Do you remember there was a while when every housewife in Ireland gave it a go? They tried it.
Yeah, history. That's really history today. It's just not a runner nowadays. It's virtually gone off the market.
It has virtually gone off the market.
Absolutely.
Yeah, though mind you, the ads for it were rated as amongst the most entertaining ads ever made for television. Believe it or not, the little Cadbury Smash robots. All right, okay, so we've got Golden Wonders possibly, but they're suffering from brown spot.
Yes.
Really, the optimum potato, is it the Rooster?
No. Record and Pinks will be really the optimum.
Records and Pinks.
Records for the people in the Midlands and Kerris Pink for the people in the coastal counties. Mm-hmm. That's traditionally where we always have been until Rooster came along in the early 90s. And it has eaten into all the markets. So now we have a decline in both the Pinks and the Record with the rise of Rooster. But really, the top of the pile would be Kerris Pink and Rooster, and I need to say the Golden Wonder. And then Rooster, I said that wrong. Pinks and Record would be the tops with Golden Wonder, and Rooster would be in a category just below those. But they're all so much ahead of what we're importing.
And we're importing hold on a second. Very controversial text has just come on online here. Rush Queens are the best potatoes in Ireland.
Well, you're talking there now about second earlies. Yeah. You're talking about the months of July and August. You and I have been talking about main crop potatoes, which are harvested from September onwards. Yeah. But for middle of the summer, they're dead right. Rush Queens or Dublin Queens, they are really the top of the pile for the months of July and August. There's nothing to match them.
When the other potatoes really aren't at their best, they're not available, really.
No, they're not available. They would not be harvested at that time.
Right. Well, if you were to bank, if you were to bet, if Paddy Power was to come on the line 10 years from now, what do you think we'll be eating?
Unfortunately, if our hotels and restaurants keep going the way they're going, your 75% will be in steady decline down all the way. And of course, what this does is it opens up Ireland to a flood of imports from all of Europe, because every country in Europe is trying to sell potatoes. And if we go away from our traditional floury potatoes, they'll have an open book to send in soapy potatoes in here to us.
And you're saying that Israel are amongst the...
They're the number one producers of these Nicola and Charlotte that our hotels and restaurants are using. And France is second. And
my understanding is that these travel really well, that they're kind of like stones. They don't degenerate for a long time.
Well, that's correct too, of course. And you have this food miles issue that we talk about nowadays as well. The reason these two countries are growing them so well is they have silt soils, which we don't have in Ireland. We have some sandy soils, but we have no silt soils, and that's where those two varieties are grown, and that's where they do very well, and that's where they land into us.
I think that's it, basically, isn't it? Yes, indeed. We say good morning to you and thank you for the information. Thank you very much for talking to us.
You're very welcome.
There you go. The man after my own bowl, Tom Marr and potatoes. He used to work at Teagasc, now acts as a potato consultant. And we have rarely come across a fellow who knew as much about his subject as that chap. Karina, good morning to you.
Good morning, Gerry. How are you?
Very good. Welcome. Nice to have you with us. Now, your daughter suffers from anaphylactic shock. This is the kind of shock that you can get, for instance, if you're allergic to nuts and you eat peanuts by mistake. And the shock is very, very severe and can actually kill you.
Well, you don't actually have to even eat peanuts, Gerry. She's allergic to peanuts that are airborne. She's never actually induced a nut in her life.
I've never seen an airborne peanut.
Even if a bag of peanuts is opened in her vicinity.
Oh, just the smell of it?
Yeah, just the smell of them alone. She has never in her life induced a peanut of any sort.
My God, I didn't know you could be that sensitive.
Well, she's extremely sensitive. She's actually called... oh God, I can't remember the name now. there's a name on what she is. She's hypersensitive to quite a lot of things.
What else would she be hypersensitive to?
She's allergic to penicillin, she's allergic to eggs, and I don't actually have her sheet of paper in front of me, but she's an A4 page that we got in Blackrock Clinic of all the other things that she is allergic to, but none of them would be as severe as the nuts. Yeah,
the nuts, for some reason or another, seem to be the top of the pops when it comes to anaphylactic shock.
It's dreadful, it really is, and for years...
Have you ever seen it happening?
Well, we've seen... Oh, yeah, she's broken out many a time, just even to be in the room. She went to a party with my sister there last year, and, where you'd go into a party, there might be bowls of peanuts and crisps and whatever on the tables. And she literally only walked into the room. She was 5 minutes there. My sister had to take her back out because her whole face, like her eyes come out like as if she's a frog, and she finds it very difficult to breathe. And just in general, her whole face, from her neck up to her forehead, just gets very inflamed. So she gets dreadfully upset, as you can imagine.
And it gets worse, doesn't it? I mean, it progresses very quickly, and that's why it's so dangerous.
Yeah, extremely. Like, she carries an adrenaline pen now, but only because we had her properly allergy tested in Blackrock. Our own doctor was a bit reluctant to give her the adrenaline pen until we had her allergy tested properly. So she now carries an adrenaline pen.
And does she know how to administer that herself?
Does, yeah. Yeah, and everybody in the family knows how to administer it.
Because I tell you, it's not until you've seen this. I was at a party, I suppose you'd call it that, once with a pal of mine, and he's allergic to peanuts, and for some completely mad reason, I have absolutely no idea why this happened. Bevies, I think, a couple of jars on board.
Okay.
I took a big handful of the peanuts. I love peanuts, and I'm sloshing it down with single malt or something like that. He drinks whiskey too, this fella as well, and he did exactly the same. It was like some sort of weird copying behaviour, and I could see it happening in slow motion. I was going, Morris, what are you doing? And into his mouth. And he went, Jesus, he said, why did I do that? And I said, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking myself. Within moments, he was almost not able to breathe. His throat had become completely constricted. And of course, everybody else was going, what's wrong with him? Is he out of it? Has he taken something, man?
Yeah.
And I'm going, no, he's just choking to death. As a matter of fact, he's got anaphylactic shock. And he didn't have an adrenaline pen, right?
Okay.
And it meant, trying to get him into hospital. It was a Friday night, trying to explain what had happened, that he hadn't taken E or something like that. Whole thing, an absolute nightmare. And eventually it was explained that if we hadn't gotten him to A&E on time, that he could have died.
Been dead, yeah, easily. But just at the moment, our main problem is, well, it's not even a problem as such. Our daughter Katie has gone away to Barcelona and in Easter.
Not Barcelona.
Yeah.
Where there's a lot of nuts.
Oh, don't say that.
The tapas dishes, God.
No, her friend that she's going to knows, and her family know all about Katie's allergies, and her uncle is a doctor. Now, not necessarily a medical doctor, he's a gynecologist, but I'm sure he has an idea, the severity of...
he's looked into a lot in his life, he probably knows a thing or two.
But on the internet, we've looked up about getting her a Medi-Alert bracelet.
A Medi-Alert?
Yeah, it's a bracelet that she would wear constantly. You can get them in gold and silver. And there's an emblem on the front of it, which is a universal known emblem. It's like, for all intents and purposes, a red snake with two lines going through it.
Yeah.
But if a medical person from any part of the world saw this, they know the person wearing the bracelet or the neck chain, whatever, has an allergy. So Katie would have a reference number on this bracelet as well, and a phone number, which is 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year. And the medical person would obviously ring this number and then be told, well, the person wearing it has, she's allergic to A, B, C, D, whatever, and, don't give her like penicillin, obviously, because she's allergic to it. But at the moment, we can only get it in England. With the change of currency at the moment, I'm not putting a price on my child's life because there's no price you could put on her life. But it's just with the change of currency, it's working out about €310. Mm-hmm. So we were basically wondering, is there any place in Ireland that does them?
What's it called again?
It's called a Medi-Alert bracelet.
Because I have the Medi tag in front of me here, which is a different thing. It's like a small USB, and you put it on a bracelet or on a chain around your neck or on a key ring, and it contains all your medical information, same sort of thing.
Okay.
When you get to the hospital, then you plug that into a PC or a laptop, plug, up it comes instantly, all the information. But what you're looking for is also very useful as well.
Well, even what you have is news to me. I've never heard of anything like that.
It's a USB. You know what a USB?
Yeah.
It's a USB data storage device. Very small, right? Not much bigger than a hall door key.
Okay.
And you download the information regarding her condition onto it, and the medical people are given it. They put it straight into a laptop or a PC, and within seconds up comes all the history.
And whereabouts do you get one of those, Gerry?
Well, you can actually get it on a website.
Okay.
Meditag. Okay?
Right, okay.
And I'll give you the address here.
Oh, wait now till I see if I can find a pen.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I found something.
Okay. Have you got something there?
Yeah.
www.meditag, or medictag, MEDICTAG,
yeah.
.com.
.com.
Now, let me see. How much is it?
Well, like, the price really and truly doesn't matter. It's just she's never been away on her own before. She's always been with my family, my husband's family, or...
$40.
Well, sure, that's probably only about €50 because the dollar is nearly neck and neck, isn't it, really?
Yeah. It's not, well, $40 would be... Oh, no, it's not €50. It's about 30-something euros.
Okay.
Yeah.
Inexpensive.
Inexpensive, yeah, and a good idea if you're...
Yeah, very, very good idea. Like, even that'd be a start.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely it would. Because I'm just so concerned about her going away. Like, she got her tickets yesterday, and to be honest, I was nearly saying cancel them.
No, I think, with a bit of careful planning and just being aware of her scenario. For me, it seems to be, with younger people in particular, it's when you're going out for a few drinks and you mightn't be as aware of what's happening around you or what other people are offering you to eat.
No, well, she's only 16, so she's not allowed to have a few drinks.
So she won't be having a few bevies in Barcelona, no?
No, that's already been agreed with her friend's mother. There's no alcohol being consumed when she's away.
Will she be going to nightclubs?
No, she will not be going to nightclubs.
Will she be talking to tall, dark Spanish fellas?
Oh, well, I suppose I've no doubt she will. That's all she's
I love your innocence. You know what? I love your innocence. You'll have to get another bracelet. Do not give this young one drink. Eileen, good morning to you.
Good morning, Gerry. How are you?
Now, going back to yesterday and inventions, Fiona was in and she was talking about who invented this and who invented that. I have to say it was very interesting, as usual, and entertaining. She's always ever entertaining. Yes. And she was asking, as she likes to do on occasions, to show up my cracks and faults. She was asking me questions, and one of them was who invented radio. Who invented television was, I think, was Mr. Bird, and the man who invented radio, of course, was a man by the name of Marconi. Now, that rings several bells with you, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, because Marconi's wireless station was actually here in Clifton, and you came close to it and you answered by saying it was somewhere in the west of Ireland.
Yeah, I knew that because many, many years ago, travelling through the west of Ireland, myself and the missus in our old Austin, Cambridge, I remember coming across the site of the transmitters. I just couldn't remember yesterday exactly where it was.
Its location is Derrygimla Bog. It would be the townland, but it's just about 2 miles from Clifton on the Ballyconneely Road. And there's no remains of the station there now because it was bombed during the war. But my grandfather was the engineer in the station. He worked there.
This was capable of transmitting to the United States.
Oh, yes,
at the time,
yes, it was. He actually radioed Reuters. Excuse me, my grandfather radioed Reuters on the arrival of the Alcock and Brown plane. And Marconi himself was not an engineer, so he had to employ an engineer. And that's our connection here.
Now, these were huge transmitters, and if I recall, they were so powerful that local people suffered radiation burns, and I'd say your grandfather probably did as well at the time, because they were really, really big, powerful transmitters. You know, probably too powerful for the needs, but that was they were developing that at the time. The technology was in its infancy.
It was a huge site, and there was residential housing for the workers who worked on the station or in the station. You know, but that's just what I wanted.
And I think the Post
and
Telegraphs people used it. It was used by the military.
That's right.
I think some of the early aviators, as you've just mentioned, used it because after Alcock and Brown, they started putting radios into the planes. So it was a very significant point, as all of the west of Ireland was in those days, going right down as far as Shannon, in fact, in the south, because the flying boats used to come into Foynes, wasn't it? Yeah, down in Foynes. And Clifton would have been a very serious, contact with the rest of the world. Yeah,
that's right. Yes, and Alcock and Brown landed quite near where
they kind of crashed
station.
into a bog there, didn't
yes,
they? Yeah,
they did. And it would have been around the same location as Marconi's wireless station, So, my grandfather, Anthony Morris.
I was about to ask, what was his name?
His name was Anthony Morris. He was born and reared here in Clifton, and he went to...
and there's nothing left, Eileen, is there not?
Absolutely nothing.
That's a pity, really, isn't it?
It is, yes, it is. Yeah, but
I
we
know
have
that,
lots of visitors to Clifton always inquiring about it.
Because Alcock and Brown's arrival is certainly commemorated quite significantly. I mean, you have a hotel there named the Alcock and Brown.
That's right, we have indeed, yes.
And
indeed.
what have they got to commemorate the Marconi site?
Absolutely nothing to
That's
my
dreadful,
knowledge.
isn't it?
It is, yes. There was a lot of talk last year when they reenacted the Alcock and Brown arrival, the Vimy, and we would have been given the replica aircraft if we had
somewhere to put it.
If we had the facilities to house it, which we don't.
That's right. Last year, a couple of American guys, I think, or were they Canadian? I can't quite remember. But they they recreated the Vickers Vimy that Alcock and Brown flew, and they actually flew it across the Atlantic with exactly the same sort of technology that was used by Alcock and Brown. It was a fantastic achievement.
Oh, it had worldwide interest.
Yeah.
And, it still has worldwide interest because we, here in Clifton, we have a lot of visitors to our area every year. And, of course, a lot of times, a lot of people are inquiring about Marconi, and there are several people who have great radio interest. So do you know what
I'm thinking? In a way, it's to our shame here in RTE that there is no commemoration. I mean, after all, we wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, earning what I'm earning, enjoying my life only for Mr. Marconi. So maybe it's something we could talk about in here. Might be a nice RTE initiative, wouldn't it?
That would be marvellous. My grandfather was the first man in Ireland to talk on aviation radio.
Really?
So, we're quite proud of that.
And so you should be.
Yes.
I'll tell you what, in one of my important and significant conversations with senior management, I will bring up the subject, and I'm sure there's enough anoraks left here in RTE who'd be quite happy to try and maybe get a few. It wouldn't take an awful lot of money. It wouldn't take an awful lot of effort, but it would be nice.
It would be wonderful for Clifton, Gerry. It would be
nice
wonderful
to put
for
something
the Connemara area. Yes,
all right, leave it with us.
Leave it Thank you so much. Okay.
Might even get a tax write-off for it, you never know.
Thank you, Gerry.
Good morning. Yes, it's ridiculous, isn't it? The man who invented radio, and there's nothing there to commemorate the first and indeed the biggest radio point of its time, when I suppose it's such an exciting time, not only in aviation but in radio and telecommunications. I mean, it was amazing, and the people who worked radio in those days were like kind of magicians, they were like wizards. And a lot of them would have suffered very serious illnesses as a result of being so close to the old antiquated transmitters. Very little protection given. I mean, they didn't understand a lot of the implications of such high radioactive waves and emissions coming from the transmitters in those days. So you get burns, problems with internal organs and all sorts of stuff like that. But at the end of the day, the main object of the exercise was to get the word across the Atlantic, and that's exactly what they did. Claire, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, Gerry. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Marconi, I could be wrong now. Someone's probably going to ring in now and say that I'm completely wrong, but recently we did the tour of the Middleton distilleries, and at the start they give you a history of the Jameson family, and they said, no, I could be wrong on the actual relation. I think it's either a great-great-grandson or great-great-grandnephew Marconi was to the Jameson, Mr. Jameson.
Well,
I just thought you'd be interested in the whiskey aspect.
The whiskey and the radio, yes. Two of my main interests colliding.
Yeah. It was prior to the tasting, so I think I remember it correctly that he was that closely of the family.
This is like one of those, we're all 6 steps away from somebody or other. Good morning.
Thank you.
Bye.
Gerry Ryan